Hello and welcome to another webinar as part of Good Things Foundation's Get Online Week. My name's Rupert and I'm from Accenture, a partner of Good Things Foundation, and we're supporting this webinar introducing you to artificial intelligence and generative AI. We'll explore what AI and Gen AI are, how it works, as well as some myths and considerations related to the technology. We'll discuss what is AI, mainly focusing on generative artificial intelligence, where we'll explain what it means and how it works. Next, we'll provide some examples of generative AI to bring this to life using two tools called Chat GPT and Adobe Firefly. Then we'll talk about the myths of generative AI to help in clearing up common misunderstandings you may have about AI. Finally, we'll cover responsible AI. This section will highlight the importance of using AI in a safe and ethical way. We'll also see some pictures like this of generative AI created images made using Adobe Firefly as we go through to show you some examples. So let's get started. In this section, we'll explore the definition of generative AI and how it works. First, we should think about what artificial intelligence is. Artificial intelligence is all around us, and there are different types of AI that help with different tasks. It's often happening in the background, so you might not even notice it. Some AI systems, like the ones behind social media algorithms or streaming apps, help decide what content to show you based on previous listening or what you've looked at. They also work on things like song playlists, shopping recommendations, and predictive text when you type a message. Navigation systems that guide your route and smart speakers that listen to your commands also use AI to make our lives easier. These are examples of artificial intelligence, or AI. Generative artificial intelligence takes this one step further. This should help us to understand AI and where Gen AI fits in. All of this is based on information or data that the AI has and can do different things with that. Let's take a look at what it does and how this develops. It starts by simply describing. To use an example in a shop, it might be that it's saying we sold 100 of a certain item last week. Next, it might be predicting. So if the shop was having a sale, it might predict we will sell 200 of the item next week. It might prescribe, which is like a recommendation. So it might say, we should order more stock ready to arrive for next week, or perhaps the reason for the sale is that the item sells much less than other ones, so we should stop ordering that item as we want to get rid of our stock of it. Generative AI is the next step, creating something new. Perhaps we could create the wording for an advertisement about the sale. Now let's talk about generative artificial intelligence. It's where a computer system can create words, pictures, and sounds like music or voice that look like the information and examples that it has. Okay, let's have a look at that in a little bit more detail. As you can see on the left, generative AI is when a computer can learn from data like words, pictures, and videos. It uses deep learning, which means it studies this data to understand patterns and how things work together. We call this system a foundation model. It helps the AI to understand and create new things. The foundation model can then produce new content, like writing things, creating pictures and sounds. This means that the AI doesn't just copy, it makes something new based on what it's learned. Now let's take a quick look at prompting. For the most part, a prompt is simply a question or request that you ask an AI system. In other words, it's a specific set of instructions or queries written by a human to an AI machine, guiding it on what kind of response you're looking for. Now, on the right-hand side, you'll see some examples of how prompts work in action. The first example is a request to create a healthy recipe using ingredients like carrots, flour, maple syrup, and apples. The second is a more structured request, asking AI to help with the schedule for 8-year-olds. These examples show just how versatile prompts can be, guiding AI to give specific, helpful answers. Next, we'll be looking at some examples of generative AI. Here we can see some of the inputs and outputs from when we asked a generative AI tool called Chat GPT for some help with making dinner. When a user inputs a request, such as asking for a recipe using specific leftover ingredients, the generative AI tool understands the details and context of what's been typed. So as you can see here, we've asked the tool for some help with creating a recipe using some ingredients. So we've got cod, tomatoes, garlic, onion, potato, vegetable stock cubes, some milk, some butter, and some mixed herbs. This understanding allows the AI to process the request and generate a relevant recipe based on the information provided. In this example, not only does the AI offer a recipe that matches the user's ingredients, but it can also adapt its response when the user asks for changes. This shows how generative AI can provide useful and specific outputs based on the user's needs. So here we can see that we've changed it to remove the potato, and the recipe has been altered to be a herb and fish tomato bake with all the steps required for that instead. Here we can see the input and some of the outputs when using a GenAI tool called Adobe Firefly. With our prompt, create a photorealistic image of Big Ben floating in space with astronauts renovating it as if it's a normal day on Earth. You can see two images here that have been generated. Both clearly depict what is commonly referred to as Big Ben, the popular London landmark. You can see some of its iconic features, including the ridges of the tower, the spire at the top, and the square on the clock face. Both also feature astronauts with backpacks and helmets to help them breathe in space, and we can see them on the backdrop of the Earth. So how did the model come to this conclusion? How does it know what to generate? Well, there are many pictures of Big Ben, many pictures of space, the Earth and space and astronauts. The model has gathered this data and used this reference imagery to create the two images we see in front of us in different ways. Just as if a human was asked to draw a picture of a dog wearing a tie, we'd think in our brains of different dogs we've seen in the past, as well as different ties, plain ones, novelty ones, bow ties, and put these images together as inspiration for our own dog picture we then draw. But these two pictures are different. One image is concentrating more on the renovation as something which requires scaffolding and people in high vis, the other with a more futuristic view, using lasers to fix the tower. As this is a hypothetical, neither idea is wrong, although you will notice one image shows many planets, potentially other solar system, while another just shows what appears to be the moon. And they aren't quite right. For example, neither of the clocks have hands, a crucial part of what makes a clock, but the model may not know that or understand the importance of that context. Next, we're going to look at some of the common myths of generative AI. Myth number one is that AI is always correct and unbiased. AI algorithms are created by people, so they can have biases based on the data they learn from. This means the results from AI may not always be correct or fair. It's important to use AI as a helpful tool, but not the only way to find the truth. You should always think critically and use your own judgment when looking at results from AI. By doing this, we can make better decisions and understand the limits of AI. Myth number two, AI knows everything. We regularly see the common belief that AI has unlimited knowledge, but in reality, generative AI tools, while designed to be user-friendly, are only as good as the data they've been trained on, which is limited. This means AI doesn't have true awareness or the ability to think for itself beyond that data. AI's knowledge is limited by the information it has access to and might not always be up to date. So while AI can be very helpful, it's important to remember that it's not all-knowing and can miss newer or real-time details. Now let's talk about myth 3. AI can think just like humans. We often see a misconception that AI has the ability to think like a person. However, this isn't true. While AI is a powerful tool that can help humans with various tasks, both simple and complex, it doesn't have human-like thought, understanding, or emotions. AI processes data and can mimic learned patterns, but it doesn't have the creativity or emotions that humans do. It can miss subtle things that we naturally understand, and its responses lack the thoughts or feelings that come from humans and their experiences. Responsible AI is the next and final section of our webinar today. Now let's take a look at responsible AI through a couple of examples, a bag and a holiday. Both of these images have been created using generative AI with quite vague prompts. If someone was to see the picture of this bag online or the sun-drenched beach in example 2 and buy that bag or holiday, and when the bag arrived in the post or the person arrived at the holiday destination and it was vastly different, they'd be very disappointed. This is what could happen when AI is used to create images and text without proper human editing or oversight. As you can see on the right, we explore this concept of responsible AI. It's about asking important questions about the possible impact when AI gets things wrong. Think about how you'd feel if this happened to you, how the staff would have to deal with complaints, and this raises the question of would you trust the company that made this mistake again? Now imagine what could happen if this type of AI failure occurred in a more critical area like healthcare. These examples make it clear why responsible use of AI is so important. Because generative AI is using examples to base its creations on, it can reinforce biases and stereotypes that exist. Here we can see an example of where a prompt has requested an image of a pilot, and this has produced similar images of a young man. And then the prompt is asking for a librarian, and this has produced images of an older woman in a cardigan. While at the same time, there have been occasions where generative AI platforms have tried to correct this imbalance, and as a result, on occasion, there can be some overcorrection, and this can produce images, for example, which may be historically inaccurate, or might not be representative of the time. Another thing to bear in mind is if AI is trained on internet data and there's not a lot of data about a certain group, in particular ones which are not online, this can mean it does not know about or understand certain groups, which can lead to unfair treatment or exclusion. Examples of this include that not as much on the internet is from the global south, and the dominant language online is often English, so all of the answers won't be there as data from a wide variety of people has not been utilised. We should all be aware that this is a problem, and people should remain aware of this when using generative AI tools. Remember, there are some important things to keep in mind when using generative AI tools. The Gen AI programs save and use the inputs like prompts and questions you put in to learn and train itself, just like it does with other information on the internet, which could lead to your sensitive information being exposed or unintentionally shared with others. There have been occasions where people have put in private information about their business, and the Gen AI tool now has that information which could potentially be leaked. Tools like Chat GPT itself warns you not to put in any sensitive information. So don't put any private information about you or anyone else into Gen AI tools. Don't put any information about your work or workplace or anyone else's work or workplace into Gen AI tools. Don't put any information about your health, anyone else's health or financial records into generative AI tools. And you shouldn't use the tool to create something malicious, to try and trick or harm others. Finally, always check and review what the tools have given you before you use it. And that's the end of the webinar for today. Thanks for joining me, and I hope this has been useful for you. I hope you enjoy the rest of Get Online Week. Good Things Foundation have also created and provided some documents which will be in the comments below.